Hi, hello everyone. Edith is my name. Again, I welcome you back to Changing Times. We are back after a couple of months. Thank you so much for waiting. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for loving our videos, for subscribing, for recommending. I always hear all these references. I get messages. And I also have heard how much our work has helped. So I'm grateful that we are able to support, that we are able to be a resource in the face of people's different changing times. I welcome you back. And today we're going to have a conversation with a gentleman that I esteem highly. He's my friend, very good friend, but he's also done great work for his country and the world wide. He is an author. I loved it when he used to direct plays. I love it when he speaks English because he's my English teacher. He's taught me a lot of English. So I am happy to have Bob Kisiki. He is going to moderate this conversation about the sovereignty of God in the face of our loss. I welcome you, Bob, to Changing Times and hope that you will enjoy it here. We talk mostly about thriving through our losses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edith. And hi, everyone, whatever time it is. Good morning, good evening, good night, good whatever time it is. The topic of loss is pertinent to all of us. We all face loss in one way or another, and loss is one of the hardest things to cope with, to accept in the first place, because accepting it might seem like we are saying it didn't matter in the first place, like we are trifling it. And the one person we would go to in times like that is God. And yet, at the same time, when loss occurs, whatever kind of loss, because loss does not only refer to bereavement. Yes, bereavement, the loss of a dear one, may be the most intimate kind of loss that we suffer. But people also suffer great losses of different things. Job loss, it may be your sole source of livelihood, and it goes and it leaves you broken. It could be a relationship that was thriving and then suddenly it's broken. You could make an investment with a huge sum of money and then it goes. Either it's swindled or something goes wrong and then the investment is no longer there. You could buy a car, a fancy car, a beautiful car, something you always wanted, and suddenly you get it, and in the blink of an eye, it's gone. It catches fire, it crashes, whatever. It could be any kind of loss. Edith, a lot of that time when that kind of thing happens, people either question or even judge God. Now, my question is, where is God when we suffer loss? Where is he? Why can't we see him? Why can't we see his hand, his involvement at that point? Where is God?
Thank you, Bob. I speak for myself, and this is my opinion mainly, but also the different accounts of people that I have worked with, that I've supported. When it comes to loss and God, to be honest, there is a state of wonder, and mainly because of where the individual is at in the time of their loss with their God. Sometimes when we pray to God, we want things to happen our way.
Yeah.
Humanly speaking, I mean, nobody wants to encounter any sort of loss. But remember that sometimes we don't hear God very well. Okay? But we expect him to do certain things. There is saying, oh God, you promised me long life. You promised this, you promised that. But for me, it is more about my belief. Now, for me, in my state, I knew that I prayed. I didn't know whether I prayed well enough, but I knew that I was confident that he was going to come through, because he had come through for me in more difficult times. And because he'd come through for me then, I generalized it to this situation and said, God, if you did it then, you can still do it now. I have confidence. And even when I said, do this, do that, put this, put that kind of oil, what I said, how will God be God if I am helping him to do his job? So I had so much confidence in him. Now, fast forward, I lose the person. So when I lose the person, I was quiet. Like I was like, God, is this what you have decided? So when I mean, and there is no time, because I prayed and he answered like that. And I asked myself, but he is God. Actually, that's when I understood the word sovereignty of God. I related with the concept, but it did not make sense until then that he is God anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So
regardless of what has happened, he remains
God. So I said, okay. A week before Samuel passed, I'd gotten word, Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah, saying that the scripture that says, even though you go through the deepest of waters, I'll be with you, and go through the fires, they'll not consume you. So I was sure that this too is going to pass, and he's with me. Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't know that the word was supposed to work for me when the loss happens. Get the meaning? Yeah. So I was like, okay, God, you said you'll be with me now. And I didn't hear much when I was quiet, but I got a song by Nathan Bassey. He says, I know you are here in this moment. So that song reminded me that he's here. In all my state of wonder, he's here. In my brokenness, he's here. In everything that I don't understand and that which I understand, he is here. But I know that the relationship that we have with God is individual. Okay? So that relationship, only he can give you the discernment on how to work with him, walk with him, hear him, teach you every day, especially in the most difficult times. It's a journey and it's not easy, but he is God.
Okay, he is God.
Mm-hmm.
Our pain does not take him away. It does not affect him.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, you've suffered this loss.
Yes.
It's a great loss, whether it's a person, it's an article, it's an investment, it's whatever. Mm-hmm. The question that occurs to some people is, was this marriage from God in the first place? Mm-hmm. Did God bless me with this job? Was it God who had enabled me to set up this investment? Mm-hmm. We question those things because we are thinking, God is so big, so important, so mighty, that if he had blessed me with this person, with this thing, surely the enemy could not have come and snatched it from me.
Correct.
And if God is sovereign, why did he, and I'm putting this in quotes, why did he mock me Why did he give me this and then snatch it away? So where is God? What is his involvement in this whole thing? That's where should people look? What should people believe about God in the face of the fact that he gives and now it's gone?
Yeah.
Does God mock us? Does God give us only to take away?
Well, I have learned that when we relate with God, it's not that only good things are going to happen to us. Okay? But understanding that in our relationship with God, some bad days will come, some good days will come, but he has us. He has our best interest. I think that's what I have learned. That even when the psalmist said that weeping may last for a night, but joy comes in the morning. I know that some days may not be good. Sometimes we will encounter difficult times, but he is God. He is there. He is hearing when you pray. He's hearing when you don't pray. He's giving when you've asked. He's given when we don't ask. I feel that there is sometimes a disconnect because we being human beings, I think we get too used to things working our way. And when it's going the way we want, then God is working. Okay? I feel like usually that when you give a testimony, it has to be that God moved a certain way. But there are some subtle ways that God moves and we don't even mention.
Yeah.
So the human persons in us want him to do and give positive responses. But I felt that also that sometimes we ask God, move me to my next, give me this, make me great, do this and that. Sometimes for God to make you great, he has to kill certain things. I think for me, my loss took me back to the book of Crushing that Bishop T.D. Jakes wrote. When there is got to be greatness that is birthed through you, it has to take a certain crushing of sorts. For the wine to come out, the grapes have to be crushed. I don't think crushing of grapes is actually a very pleasant thing to the grapes. You get it? But the product of that crushing, we all enjoy. That's the wine.
Yeah.
So I feel that sometimes God takes away, sometimes he kills things in us. Sometimes, he moves a certain way because it's the process of what he wants you to become.
What I'm reading from you, Edith, is you didn't put it this way, but this is my understanding of it, that God is a God of times and seasons.
Correct.
And until we understand that certain things will happen for a time,
yes,
and they are not independent in themselves, they are part of a process.
Yes.
There is an end product that God has in mind.
Yes.
And certain phases are preparatory
Yes.
for that end product. And we never perceive it that way.
Sure.
Is that true?
Yes.
Do you think if someone understood that, then they will understand loss better?
I would think they will appreciate loss because it's not a comfortable place. Yeah, it's not a comfortable place. But when you understand seasons, you understand times, you understand that some things will go anyway. When you understand that, it doesn't have to be your way always. When you understand that it's a process, when you understand that he knows the plans that he has for us, and these plans are good and not to give us an expected end. I always come to that expected end. Remember, nothing takes him by surprise. He knows all these things. They are preordained. So when these things happen to us, he did not tell us the process because probably would have cowardized and said, not me, maybe send another person. Okay? So he will not tell you. He'll give you a few things. That's, in my opinion, that some things will happen to you, some good, some bad, but you will manage. Okay, when the big things, the big bang comes, a lot of times we are, and he will not prepare us that much. Okay, He will not prepare us that much, but he knows the plans, and he definitely will use us because he wants a certain thing to his glory, please. So a certain thing will be birthed in you to the glory of his name. For me, in my situation, I asked God. So when I asked you and I believed and I have done everything, is there anything that I haven't done? I felt my thank you from God. I felt it. So I said, what is it that you want me to do with this loss? Heavy as it was. I asked that question when I was still in the hospital. Immediately when it passed, I said, God, what do you want me to do with this? And a calm came over me that I will serve from a point of knowledge. Then it took me back to when I asked Samuel in the hospital the day before he died. I asked him, has God ministered to you while you were in the induced coma? And he gave me 3 points. He actually wrote down those 3 points. That we will serve God, me and you, we are going to serve God and preach the word to multitudes. Please note, I'm not a pastor. So I didn't understand this. Then he said that you are going to serve God alone. I said, oh, God has spoken.
After saying we are going to serve together, then he said, you are going to serve God alone.
God alone.
Okay.
Then the third statement was, tomorrow we shall be discharged. I was so happy about the first 2 that I didn't give attention to the last one. But that was not the main point, because if I had if I had paid much attention to it, I probably would. Sometimes I feel like we pray these prayers which are empty. When we are desperate, sometimes we don't articulate our prayers well. So sometimes we say, oh God, you have to do this. I need you to do this and that and that. And then sometimes it is not effectual. So I somehow I did not pay attention to the third. I focused on the first 2. I said, okay, I give you glory. I pray that you use me whichever way. He died. He gave me the message. And I was called back and I served. It is not as easy as I am saying it. But when you yield, like when I yielded, I have seen God move in great ways. And even the burden of loss lifts. Every time I felt like I can't go on and I'm on my knees and I'm crying and saying, God, how am I going to do this? He's there.
Edith, remember we are talking about the sovereignty of God in the face of loss.
Sure.
Usually when loss happens, even when we know that God is there, actually many people address God after they've suffered loss.
Yeah.
Some of them is to tell God, do your thing, I do mine.
Yeah.
Others are to say, I do not agree with you in whatever you've done. They acknowledge that he's there, but there is a feeling of rebellion, of defiance. They want to keep a distance from him. And yet we know he's the only one who can heal them.
Yeah.
We know he's the only one who can mend their broken hearts. We know, like in the case of Job, Job of the Bible,
yes,
he's the one who gives and who takes away.
Sure.
And in Job's case, he actually restored what Job had lost. We know that only God can do those things. And yet the first instinct is defy him.
Yeah.
Push him aside or turn away from him. How can people handle that dichotomy of feelings? The knowledge that only God can help and the feeling that I don't want to be with him.
I've worked with people in my counseling room on such matters. And I I want them to feel that they are valid. You know, it is okay to be frustrated with what has not worked. It is okay. But after the frustration, like when the storm comes down in the heart, he, as God, ministers to you his goodness. I have seen this. So it's not a time that I have encouraged people to, how because I'm not the one experiencing your loss. So I'll be like, but how can you even say that? How do you look how far he has brought you, and all that kind of talk? Now that can mean to me, but the person who is going through that frustration, it may not make sense. So I would say you are valid to feel frustrated, angry, and unattended to, and where is God in all of this? But knowing that God is a parent, that he will not withhold any good thing from us, that he has not brought us this far just to drop us without a plan. With such words, I have encouraged people to slowly come back to this place, because he, much as we may be angry at this parent, we will come back to this parent and say, I need this, I need that, and I need that, and I need your love. Okay? Because a parent's love is unmatched. So how much more the parent God? You understand? So that parent God is that one who, he will keep quiet when we are going about all these things. But when we are ready to come back to him and seek his face, he's still there waiting for us. He does not go away. He's waiting for us to come back to him, and he will hold our hand. So in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the loss, it may be difficult to understand all of this information, because remember, our thinking faculties and understanding faculties are compromised in the face of what we have no control over. Every time we don't have control over a situation, we edge God out. That's why we get stressed. That's why we get anxious. That's why we get all these things, because we've edged him out. But when we come back to him, he picks us from that point, and then he will walk the journey with us. It may not be as pleasant, but he is still there. There is a person, and I think it also happened to me, who told me, they asked God, how could you take my so-and-so? I think I've also had those moments. But then I remembered one thing, that what makes me think that I loved my husband more than God loved him? What makes me think that I love the life I live more than the one who has given it to me? But those thoughts will come to you when you are not in the storm. You know, the storms of life, they come to you when you when you create space for the Spirit to minister to you. So their feelings are valid, but then knowing that this parent, we shall have to go back to this parent, is important. It also takes maturity to understand the difference. That yes, he allows certain things to happen to us. And yes, we shall question his presence, his hand in things, but still we will come back to him, because he's the Alpha and the Omega.
In addition to being Alpha and Omega, well, which is really the same thing, he's the one who starts things, who started things,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows where they are going, which we do not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, scripture says of God
Mm-hmm.
that in all things, he works for good for those who love him.
Sure.
All things involves even loss.
Yes.
Is it possible for everybody to see the good in loss? How will I see that loss? How will I see the good in the loss I've suffered? Is there a way? Do I have to wait? Do I have to go back to God and ask him Where is that good in the loss that I've suffered?
It's good to ask, but God ministers to us always, by the way. Where we are seated in the time of our lives is how we shall receive the messages from God. Okay? So asking that, it is our carnal cells, our carnal cells will interfere usually with the reception of these messages. Now, the more the carnal self is sounding in our heads, we shall not hear the other part that speaks to us from a godly perspective. But he speaks.
And so what do we do?
So what we
Not
do
to take
is,
the wrong path.
well, I think it depends on the relationship that we have. How much of God do we know? How much do we want him? How badly do we want him? We will not know him and enjoy him when we can do things on our own, when we can sort our matters, when we feel that we are in charge and in control. But we will enjoy him more when we surrender. So at the point of your surrender is when you feel that all things are working for my good, even when you don't see it, you will feel it. I have experienced this, that every time I have wondered, God, what did you mean with this? There is a feeling in me that reminds me that he has good plans. And you see these plans when you are quiet, like when you enable that to come clear to you. But when we still have these noises in our heads, it is because we want it our way. We want certain things to happen in the shortest time. The long time, the process is what reveals the goodness, the plans, and the healing. It's a journey. We want to be fine in the shortest time. That's why we take overdose. That's why we take medications that should give us, some bit like anesthetics, anesthesia and stuff like that. But when we endure, we shall surely get to that point where, you see, I took you all through this journey just to get you here. And when I get you here, it is that nobody will think that you did it on your own, but I, the Lord alone, have brought you this far. That's my feeling.
Does it always benefit the person who has suffered loss, or is it sometimes for the sake of someone else, for other people? How do I reconcile the fact that I have suffered the loss, but this could be for the sake of others?
There is nothing that God will give you for the sake of others if it does not benefit you. That's what I believe. I have had the satisfaction of counseling, of giving therapy to other people. Remember that when I am doing this, I am healing, I am getting knowledge, I am getting grounded, I am understanding. There is a lot more for me to benefit on this journey, for example, than the person who just knows that, oh, it talked to me and I feel better. For me, I'll feel better for you. I feel better that God has used me. I feel actually privileged, and I enjoy the fact that there is another person out there who feels good just because I've interacted with them. So it is not only that person. The person who gives gets more blessed than the person who actually receives.
You mentioned a bit of privilege, and it's the one I want to pick on as we go towards the end of this conversation. Mm-hmm. You said it's a privilege.
Yes.
Why is it a privilege that you are reaching out to that person? You are participating in their healing. You are participating in their focusing on God in that time of their loss. Why do you call it a privilege to you?
It's a privilege because God could have used anybody else but me. It's a privilege because it's a humbling place. Like, it's not that because I have studied psychology and I have practiced. No, there are many psychologists who can't do this. I mean, I don't want to boast, but there is many people who can do what you do. But what you have is not that you went to school to get. It is because God has chosen you and has given you all these resources that you will go and shine outside there.
Okay.
So it is that amongst the people in the whole world, he has chosen me for this.
Okay, I wanted that to come out because remember, again, I'll draw us to the topic we are dealing with, the sovereignty of God in the face of loss. And so looking at it as a privilege, we are serving God. We are serving the greatest king of all the kings that there are. And like you said, he could have used somebody else.
Yeah.
But he has picked on me who is unworthy.
Yes.
And he's using me
Yes.
to minister in the lives of other people.
Yes.
Which really shows him as the one in charge, the overall.
Yes.
It's not about me, it's about him.
Yes.
Well, our time is almost up. And so I wanted to ask you to bring all the loose ends together. I am suffering the loss. God is in charge of everything. And in all things, God works for good for those who love him. So where do I stand in this whole equation vis-a-vis the sovereignty of God? What is my place? What is God's place? What is the lossless place? Let's just tie up the loose ends.
Okay. So loss happens and we have no control of that. It's unfortunate sometimes that we are the vessels that loss goes through. Now, it's wise and it's a good thing amidst the loss to know that God has got good plans and that he loves us and he will not forsake us. And that even when we are, sad and weary and all of that, it's important to know that our relationship with him is what makes the process of coming through our loss easier or bearable. So it's important that we cultivate a relationship that is of love, that is of understanding, that understands that God is our parent, that he loves us, that even when we go through the hardest of times, that he's there and he will not forsake us. So understanding that he's sovereign means that there is nothing that has surprised him in our loss. That even when we are going through our loss, that he is taking us with him through it to achieve a greater purpose, a purpose that is higher than us, a purpose that we don't know about. But until we yield, we shall not be serviceable. This takes care of all the, it has required humility, it takes care of all these things that we are in charge. So when we are humane, when we are ready, when we avail ourselves, then God will use us because he alone knows the plans and he alone will not withhold a good thing from us. And that good thing may be that what you lost is not what you actually need for your next journey. So then you appreciate that all things are working together for me. And he has said these words, and he does not go back on these words. So we will find comfort in knowing that he's got us. And every time we do not acknowledge this, we are moving far away from where we should be. And until we come back to this place, because he has parameters within which he operates with us. So until we come back to this place, we will wander. But when we come back to the core, he will lift us up and he'll take care of us and he'll take charge of us and he will lift our burdens because he is able. I have witnessed this.
Okay. I think the best people who understand this concept are babies. When a mother spanks a baby, the baby will cry, then run to the mother who spanked it
Yes.
for comfort and solace.
Correct.
Yes. Well, I think now it's time for you to say farewell to the viewers and to link this to our next conversation.
Thank you so much, Bob, for interacting with us. Thank you so much, everyone who has, who listens to us and takes our messages to the next level. Please share this conversation with far and wide with your networks. The next conversation will be about loss and men. So how men thrive in the face of loss will be our next conversation. And I'm happy that, Bob, you're with us, and I'm happy that you're sharing your time with us. Please ensure that you share, like, subscribe, and drop a comment for us. We'd love to hear from you, and we love your feedback. Thank you so much. And until next time, changing times, let us thrive through our changes, knowing that we are destined for greater things. Until next time, be safe, be well, thrive, and enjoy your lives.